We'll call to order the Manlius Town Board meeting for January 11th, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. As always, we are doing our meeting through Zoom. We have some folks joining us remotely via Zoom. We are also streaming to Facebook, to YouTube, and to our town website. If you're interested in joining a meeting via Zoom, the instructions are at the top of all of our agendas. I will ask Councilor Denton to lead us in the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So up next, we have an open podium. This is an opportunity for residents to address the board. We ask that folks stick to 3 minutes, and we have anybody who has signed up for open podium?
I did not check the most recent sheet outside. I don't see any hands raised. And we didn't have anything outside.
Okay, is there anybody here to speak at open podium?
I signed up to speak. I'm the treasurer of Eastern Hills Church. And if the subject comes up that needs to clarify.
So I imagine you're here for the public hearing.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll hold off until the public hearing. Thank you. Okay, seeing no one for open podium, we'll move on. Next up, we have the public hearing for the annexation to the village of Manoa for the grind.
And I'm one of the town attorneys here for the town of Manlius. And moving forward with this, we do have representatives from the village of Manoa.
That's right.
And who do we have here, just for the record?
Yeah, I'm Bill Brazil, the mayor of the village of Manlius. This is Lisa DeBona. She's my clerk treasurer.
And you're authorized on behalf of the village to.
Yeah, the board, authorized myself and Lisa to be here today.
And this is a joint hearing on the annexation petition.
Yes.
So the petitions are required to have certain information in them that's viewed, and what's going to happen is presentation documents or questioning or any other information that is sought by either the village of Manoa or the town of Manlius, and any other evidence that they may require, anything that needs to be presented, any public comments or information, that's all done here. So really, it's up to the village and the board if they need any other information here.
Right.
We do, the petitions were made public here. Everybody has a copy of those that needs them, and they contain the information they contain. I don't want to say anything further about that, but if anybody has any further questions about it or
Are you
any,
doing both of them together?
Okay, separate.
they're two separate. So the first is petition for annexation by the Greiners.
Oh, okay, so they're right here.
And yes, that I did get a chance to see them earlier. It's John and Linda Greiner.
Yeah.
It is for territory in. And I can just get you the exact, identified as lot 2 on the subdivision map dated December 21st, 2020, which was attached to positions approximately 4.572 acres of land in tax map parcel number 055.01-06.0 in the town of Manlius.
So we should get to open.
Yes.
Okay, I look for a motion to waive the reading.
Sure, I'll make the motion to waive the reading of the public notice.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Make a motion to open the public hearing.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Oh,
Do that now. Yeah, I would do that first. Sorry. Okay.
yeah. So we'll confirm that we have had a conversation with the village of Manoa. They will be taking lead agency and seeker for the annexations. As they are seeing the property added to the village, we discussed that. And so now that we've got that covered, is there anyone here to make a comment on the annexation of the Greiner property to the village of Manoa? Does the village of Manoa need any other information? Do we need any other information? I think the town is satisfied.
Unless there's any questions from your board.
I thought it was pretty complete.
Great. Okay, look for a motion to close public hearing.
So. I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, I just want
Yeah.
So
you
want to move to the next?
Yeah, so we'll move right on to the next one.
So we want to share that we'll be voting on this in the next one.
Okay, so we will, when are we looking to do that? Oh, do that?
So that you're gonna stay with this.
Okay,
After we know.
yeah, so once Manoa has declared itself lead agency and gone through the secret process, we will, which is next week, we will, have this on our agenda at the next meeting, for a vote.
All right.
So next up would be the annexation to the village of Manoa, for the Karen property. I would look for a motion to waive the reading.
I make a motion to waive the reading. I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Want to say the speaker's not again?
So we will, as discussed with the village of Manoa, they will be taking lead agency for seeker. They have their meeting next week. We'll make that determination. And so I would look for a motion to open the public hearing.
I'll move to open the public hearing. I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. So is there anyone here who'd like to make a public comment on the annexation to the village of Manoa for the Karen property?
you want to say the
Yeah, so before, so the address for the Karen property, this was a petition received from Sharon Karen. The address is 7235 North Central Avenue in Manoa with a tax ID, with a tax parcel ID of 054.02-26.1. That is the description of the property. There's a more formal description of the property contained in the petition.
Do you have any questions about this one or other information?
No, we're right here. Karen's and, there's any questions from your board?
Does the board require any more information?
I'm good.
Okay, just to make sure, no public comments to be made? Anybody online?
One of the things, if I could, our next board meeting is the 23rd, so it's not next week, it's 2 weeks away. But as we go through our process and having, we have our public hearing to adopt this annexation. You're gonna be voting on that when now?
So once you've gone through the secret process and made the vote, we'll have it at our next meeting to have a vote. Once we've heard back from
Our
you.
next meeting after that would be the 25th, right?
We'll be ready. Okay, yeah.
So assuming we can get that transmitted pretty quickly, we should be able to have that, we'll have it planned to be on the agenda for the,
Okay.
25th
Yeah, the
meeting.
23rd is when we're.
great.
Okay.
So I'm sure I'll give you a call the 24th. We'll make sure everything's transmitted and we'll have it on our agenda.
Okay, very good, thank you.
We'll look for a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing. I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Exactly, yeah.
I think there's our official meeting. No. Yeah, that's nice. Okay, thank you so much. Great seeing you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm looking to see you.
Take care. Safe.
Thank you.
Absolutely, have a wonderful night. Okay, so I know we have something from Attorney Potesky relevant to the R&M zone change.
Yes, so we will be holding a public hearing very shortly on a zone change request for a property off of Vendors Road from I think RA to it's right now. it's
Yeah.
RM. One of the requests of the planning board was to look at the RM zone, which was the changes we made to the RM zone on September 28th of last year. As it specifically relates to retail and making sure we understand the impact of allowing retail in the RM zone and also making sure that it fits within the overall context of an RM zone, which is supposed to have a residential character, a neighborhood character. It's a transition from residential to commercial use. I have drafted an amendment to the RM zone, which I believe addresses the concerns that have been raised by the planning board. The main issue was defining residential or retail sales in a RM zone. And what we believe would be a small scale retail that would fit more aptly in a RM zone than in a commercial zone. And after some discussion, we have decided to, the local law before you would amend RM to limit the amount of space in a building, an existing structure for retail sales, small scale retail sales to 50% of the size of the existing structure. So if you had a 10,000 square foot building, you would be allowed to have 5,000 of that as retail space. Does two things. It limits the intensity of the retail in the RM zone, but it also actually purposely requires a mixed use in.
So whether that be
In a building. that has
professional
a
office,
reason. That's right.
artisan makerspace or residential, the goal of this change is to make it so that it's not simply a retail facility, that it would have another use along with it, to help it better fit into the idea of this residential transitional district.
So that was the main change, and we also removed retail sales from site plan and accessory use permit to special use permit requirement from the planning board. And one of the kinds of questions that came up was, especially in the context of this specific building, which is a church, isn't a church, isn't a house, it doesn't look residential. So one of the things I did do is add a couple words that also makes it clear that one of the goals of this town board is not only to require to have a residential look, but also to repurpose existing buildings like this for residential purposes, even though it might not look residential, it will be residential. So that was the other change. So if anybody is like, well, this doesn't look like a house, well, we don't require it to look like a house, especially if you're repurposing it for residential uses. Does that make sense, everybody?
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
So at this point, we cannot approve that change without a public hearing about the change.
Correct. So this has to work in tandem with the zone change for this property.
Right.
So
That's why we're bringing it up now.
that's why we're bringing it up now before we hold a public hearing on the zone change. So my suggestion would be to set the date for a public hearing on the local law for you with the changes I just described for February 8th.
And that'll be time to refer it to the town planning board and Onondaga County Planning Board.
So I would make a motion to set a date for February 8th, and request that this be transmitted to the town planning board and the county planning board for comment.
At 6:35.
At 6:35.
Great.
I'll second.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, all those in favor?
Right.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Okay, so then next up, we have the public hearing for a zone change of 4600 Enders Road in Manlius from RA to RM. And so just before we open the public hearing, I would ask the applicant to kind of talk to us a little bit about the project. And I think I have some documents to share. Do you want me to pull up the aerial shot first? The aerial would be great.
All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Grazi Zazara, president of Icon Companies, one of the ones who submitted the zone change application for 4600 Enders Road. Icon's got a track record of identifying vacant or underutilized properties, figuring out a way to preserve them, but also transform them into valuable assets. That's exactly what we like to do with 4600 Enders Road. We have another contract to purchase. Our vision of that property is to transform it into 17 spacious, nicely finished apartments. All the work that we would do would take place within the existing walls of the current building, meaning no big expansion or addition on the property. It would all be done renovation within those walls. And then for the site itself, I'd really like to take a lot of that blacktop out because it's sea of parking that we really just don't need. I'd like to replace that with softening it up with some green space and some kind of outdoor amenity there. One real positive thing I want to bring up about the project is it's a very low impact use. In terms of traffic for the neighboring businesses, or even the morning commuters. 17 units in a building this size, a property this size is probably as light of as use as you'll ever get. Another real positive thing I want to bring up, which is really not positive for me at all, but it is for everybody else, is the property's not, it's currently tax exempt. So upon buying it and renovating it, it'll go back on the tax roll, meaning, tens of thousands of dollars every single year coming in. And, having done about a half dozen projects like this, totaling 150 units we've created, we kind of have a feel for what type of product is needed in a specific community. We do our market research. We don't just build apartments, right? So over the last 2 or 3 years, I know a lot of people who desperately wanted to move into this community that when unable to do so. The housing market is just so crazy and so competitive that 3 years later, they still are not part of this community, even though they want to be. On the flip side, in Academy Hill and different offshoots off Enders, there's a lot of people that have been here 30+ years. They're empty nesters. They built up equity in their homes. They love to sell, downsize. They don't need the space, and they don't want to leave the community. And I don't blame them. And there's really not that product out there that they can realistically see themselves downsizing into and taking that next step to sell their home, which I think we can come up with a product for this building that will satisfy the need of both the type of people that I just brought up. So we'd love to do the project. We need a zoning change to do it. So I'd ask you to vote yes on that, and thanks for the consideration. Any questions you might have, I'm happy to try to answer them. Questions from the board?
What would the rents be for the apartment?
They do market rents, but it depends on the size and number of bedrooms. We've got a general pro forma done for, but they'd be market rents.
Could you just give me an estimate? I'm just curious.
I think on your low end, you probably would have about $1,150 to $1,200 a month. On your high end, for a very spacious 2-bed, 2-bath unit, might be around $2,000 a month.
Okay.
So,
So it's currently a lot.
so you're looking at like 1 and 2 bedrooms in there?
Yes.
What part of the blacktop would you be interested in removing?
In the backside, it slopes down, so everything highlighted is part of the property, obviously. The conceptual layouts we have now, there's doors all around it, because the whole building is technically at grade, so it's not like we can trap off a whole portion of it. We need parking on all sides, but my initial instinct is the top left quadrant, and maybe even down to the bottom of the top right quadrant there. If the zone change occurs, we're obviously gonna get down to the nitty-gritty and get real plans done to see
Yeah.
what makes the most sense.
And I think too, once you present the site plan, we'll know exactly how many apartments are looking at, which will dictate how much parking is needed. So I think, when it gets to the planning board, we'll be able to see a lot better what that, what it's intended to.
Yeah, no, I think it's a cool project.
And the fact that you're already considering adding green space and without us even having to. That was one of the comments we got, so thank you for bringing that.
Yeah, sure.
That's great.
We want to throw a couple of EV charging stations up there. We really appreciate it. Some solar panels on the. Yeah, you gotta do some Tesla ones and then some Ford Mustang ones.
All right, thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Okay,
Is there any intention to do mixed use in this? Is there?
There's an upper floor that's about 2,000 square feet. It's existing office, and we'll either keep that as a leasing office, or we'll try to convert that in a way to have an office component in its office. Yeah, but that would be a deal like use. All right. Anything
It was
else?
great to have a square foot.
any other comments from the board before we open the public hearing? Okay, I would look for a motion to waive the reading of the public notice.
I'll make a motion to waive the reading of the public notice.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries.
I'll make a motion to open the public hearing. I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. So anybody that's joining us online, we are just gonna ask that you raise your hand and we'll work you into the rotation, but you just use the raise hand function to get in line. And then I would ask for anyone present, just to show of hands, if you'd like to come up to the podium and share a comment with us, we'd be.
I do have a list of letters that I'd like to read that I've received, just note that I've received them into the record. I have received letters of support from Beverly Lewis, Bob Doolittle, Connie Maury, Roger Maury, Dennis Hennessy, Kathleen Kenville, Kristen Taylor, Mark Penville, Harry Harvey, Ron and Diane Anderson, Taylor Horseman, Thomas Dellis, David Corbett Jr., Katie Feely and Jay Feely, and I have received one letter of opposition from Douglas and Jerry Hines. And if you did submit a letter of support, especially today, and it was not read into the record, you know, we will make sure that it is noted for the record. All of these are printed and kept on file, and all get sent to the town board directly.
And look for anyone who'd like to make a public comment.
Did you want to? Yeah, please feel free to.
All right, well, I didn't prepare anything. So I'm the treasurer at Eastern Hills and
Could you say your name for the record?
Roger Maury. I'm one of the letters. And we have had a vote with the congregation. If you go back in time, 20 years ago, we came to the town and asked for approval to develop the land, which is on Casanova Road now, which is the large church you see as you're headed towards Cas. And it was a 3-phase project. We completed phase 1, ran out of money, stopped. We owned, well, I can't see it anymore because it's gone, but the properties beside that blacktop, we also owned those properties because we kept expanding and we finally said we needed a church. And so we built the property on Cas, 8277 Cas Road, and we're continuing to grow, which is great. And but we've got a problem because 2 things. We've got 2 facilities that are a real pain to maintain 2 facilities. And if you're ever acquainted with how you administer a church, I suggest you not get involved because it's complicated, it's political, and it's hard. But
You're preaching to the choir over there.
But having 2 facilities instead of 1 separates the staff. It's not healthy. It gives us silo approaches to organization. And we've had several fallouts of that, and we want to fix that. And it was always the intent 20 years ago to fix that. And so we plan to expand 8277 to put offices. That's the only thing we really need over there on that building. Everything else can be fit in from the current building, which would suggest we shouldn't have the building that he would like to buy. And so we presented that to the congregation. We did have a 92% approval. We have to present again, so I don't want to mislead you there, because the terms of the agreement have changed. And so for the Attorney General's approval, we have to go in with a very specific, firm, no contingent offer, part of which involves you because we need the zone approval. But assuming you guys come along and help us with this, we will go to the congregation again. But we did have 92% approval the first time around. And I know Doug and Jerry, and I love them, and they were probably part of the 8%. Because this is the provisional building for Eastern Hills. It's 50 years. There's a lot of sentiment associated with how we grew up. But we've outgrown it.
Thank you very much.
Questions?
Questions? Okay,
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
again, anybody that's joining us remotely, if you want to use the raise hand function to make a comment, is there anyone else here who'd like to? Please.
Good evening. My name is Dennis Hennessy, and my wife and I have been residents in the village of Manlius for the last 30 years. And I've never come in front of the board to support anything because it's never been something, you know, there's things that have come and gone that have been good and some have been bad. This one I think is very good, and that's why I wanted to come here. I love the thought of reusing an existing facility, but not making it into a mega complex like some of the other proposals that have been done in the town of Manlius. Love the fact that they're using the existing facility. They're going to be high-end apartments, and as Grazi said earlier, there are people who are looking to stay in this area who are nesters. I mean, we have a family member who is older. It could be first floor. It, you know, now trick is convincing her to move. But the point is that there's a need, I think there's a real need for a high-end apartment, facility like this. I love the fact that the green space is coming back. And the last, from a selfish standpoint, from a taxpayer standpoint, the fact, I appreciate the church is, and I support that it's a non-for-profit and don't have to pay taxes, but I like the fact that we're gonna have another tax base to it and something completely separate. I love the amendment that your attorney came up with for the use, because it limits it. It doesn't just make it wide open. So that's all. I'm very much in support of this and hope you all vote in that way. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, any other comments? I don't see any coming from Zoom. So one last chance, if you're on Zoom and you would like to make a comment, please use the raise hand function. Any other comments from the board? So, based off of what Attorney Prochaska said earlier, we are gonna hold the public hearing open, as we continue.
That's my question is, do we have to do that?
Well, if the board doesn't feel the need to hold it open, we can close the public hearing.
We'll just have, I think we can close this public hearing. And we'll have the other public hearing.
Oh, so, okay, that's what I'm saying. We can't vote tonight. That's
Well, we have to make those changes to the zone before we can potentially change the zone.
So if the board is interested, I would entertain a motion to close this public hearing.
So
Well, wait.
Well,
Should we hold it open
wait.
for anybody with interest in the new law?
Allison, and having your conversation.
I do not believe you can vote to approve it tonight because we
Yeah.
believed it was gonna run in tandem, so we do not have an enacting resolution.
Yeah.
for it. You
Yes,
have
we
to
can't
send
vote.
me, but not the enact.
But-
I don't see a reason to keep the public hearing open.
Yeah, I'd make a motion to close the public hearing on the zone change for 4600 Andrews Road.
And I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Okay, motion
So if
carries.
you understand that this is not about you, it's about that other law, but it's gonna hold you up anyway.
It's not you, it's us.
But we have that public hearing scheduled, we'll be moving forward with that, and,
So the first February meeting is we back on.
Because we have to
Do
wait.
it all that night.
Yep.
February 8th.
Everybody's comfortable, they can do both the change to the amendment to the RM zone plus the zone.
And I don't know for your timeline.
After the public hearing closes next go around, you also can vote on.
Yes, we vote.
yeah, so the public hearing for the zone change is closed. The public hearing we'll be having is for the amendment to the zone, and then once that's wrapped up, and
We can vote
assuming
that
we
day.
adopt the amendment, we could immediately vote on this.
That's February 8th, you said?
Yes.
Based on what they said they want to do,
I know,
be under
that's
the
what-
old law?
That's what I don't
Yeah.
understand, like why it doesn't really apply.
Because they're just doing it.
Well, okay,
I
so
mean, anyway.
That's where it comes back to, this is a zone change, this is not site plan. So, assuming,
It could be anything.
Because of the repurposing language we have just discussed, because there's some question as to whether or not this building is a residential looking building. It's frankly, it's not. We want to clarify that it doesn't have to be residential looking in order for it to be residential.
I think it's cleaner to just follow this process.
Yeah.
And it's just a couple weeks. I know everyone likes to move things where they get some press a little bit ways away, but I would prefer that we wait and just tie that up and then move forward.
Then we can just go. So for your planning, you won't have any resolution to give to the congregation until after the 8th.
Yeah, my only comment is, we'd like to break ground in March.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
So anything you guys.
Get everybody to come there.
What do you break the ground for?
To build the other.
Yeah, new offices.
Yeah. They want their cash money.
We might be our friends' first tenants. I don't know.
Do you need to have approval from the Inspector General's office?
Yes, you have to have approval from the Attorney General, which means we have to have a firm, non-contingent offer, which he can't give us until you guys.
so we'll be ready to move, you'll be ready to move forward with that after the meeting on the 8th.
So on the 9th, you can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
I'm happy.
And we're sorry that it dragged, there was a little hiccup in the middle there, but we
No,
want to
we
make
just
sure.
appreciate your support.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you guys.
No, we love having different kinds of housing available and having options for people, like you said. That's something we've been very excited about.
And there's definitely a need for apartments.
There absolutely is. Yes, especially for empty neighborhoods like you're on.
Okay,
All right, thanks very much.
thank you very much.
You're welcome to stay and hang out for the rest of the meeting.
So next up on the agenda, we have a letter of intent to purchase 6.22 acres plus or minus of vacant land situated off of North Burdick Street in Fayette.
Yeah.
So this is what's also known as the Feta property. They are currently before the planning board for a number of different things. And so there is a section of property there, roughly 6.22 acres. That is to the south of the South Pond, that we are or possibly interested in pursuing. This letter of intent was drafted up after a conversation with the developer. Basically, this would show our intent to move forward. With approval of this letter, I would move to hire an appraiser for the site so that we can get an understanding of fair market value and move from there with negotiations. This is very early on in the process. The intent is to put a new municipal building on this site with the intent to house not only everything here at Town Hall, a new town court, but also to bring the police department into a new facility out of their temporary facility from 1985 that has just a couple of issues with it currently. And the goal is, again, to bring the town closer to its center, over by Town Center, right off of Burdick Street. This is a really good opportunity. We have some growing pains here in this current building. When we talk about possibly bringing on new staff, really the first question is where will we put them? And we've got some other issues, some logistical issues here in the building. And when we look forward to what that building might look like, the goal would be to engage the public throughout the process. Ask the public, what are they looking for? Are they looking for a simple municipal building that just meets our needs? Are they interested in possible additions such as recreation facilities, a community room? And that will be a much longer, or not, I'm not to say drawn out, but a longer process that we would be going after to understand the right building for the community. With the understanding that both the police department and town hall currently are in a situation where we've definitely outgrown the current facilities. And so I would look for any questions or conversation around this letter of intent.
Could you just, for the benefit of the public, go over the costs of this and how we had allocated those funds?
Yes, so the letter of intent points out. You know what?
It's on number one for the,
It was $10,000.
yeah, number one.
Yes,
is zero.
that would be the $10,000 to hire the appraiser to appraise the site for us. And that would be, we would have to allocate some ARPA funds to pay for that or find somewhere else in the budget. to bring in that money.
We actually did up to 25.
Right.
Razor to, the 10,000 would be a earnest deposit that would be made after the appraisal's done, after we enter into a contract to purchase, which we are not there yet. In order to get to the contract to purchase, we need to understand the value of the property through an appraisal, which is required by the controller's office. We have to at least be able to, we have to show that we're paying a reasonable price for vacant land.
Due diligence.
And again, this is a site that has been vacant for quite a while. We're very happy to see Twin Shores Development get it under control and start putting some plans together. And really, you know, as I talk to a lot of residents as they come in, some people will say that we're a little tucked away. This would be a really nice opportunity to get out there right in the middle of the town. And also to be able to bring the police department to the center of the town and to give them a new facility befitting our police department would be great. So any other comments or questions?
So I just have a comment. We did do a survey for our ARPA fund, and although 245 people took that survey, it does give us a little sampling of what the people want, and over 75 people who took the survey did say that the new town hall building was of low importance or not at all. And what I take from that is just, it means that we haven't done our job of making the case for a new town hall, and so that's my concern. And I also am concerned too, so I guess the question too is if we do the appraisal and it comes back to high, then potentially we have to find a location. Is that correct? Like we find a new, we have to start over.
We wouldn't buy it if the price is too high.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
We couldn't, the prices to it. If it's an unreasonable amount of money based on the appraisal, then the state control's office would have a issue with us buying property. I'm not an appraiser, nobody here is an appraiser, and we have to rely on a professional to give us an idea of what the market value of raw vacant land is and the development vacant land. So that would be what the appraisal would be.
And I would like to clarify that this does not in any way commit the town to building anything on this land. It is simply to secure the land so that it doesn't get used for something else. And when we looked, there's very little land around, so that's the reason to try to lock it.
I think it's been probably a 10-year plus project to find a suitable site.
Yeah.
The fact that this is available, that's.
So I think that we were in a position of the way I frame this is and understand it for the people is that we had been kicking the can down the road. We have a number of issues that don't have an easy resolution. And I think we're all sensitive to the idea that nobody wants a new palace. We've seen some other projects in the community that are for public good and think, what was that process like to really get there? Who were making all the decisions? How was it done? And this idea of communication and also communicating with people all along the way is something that I think I would insist upon.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't endeavor and know that, but I also know that in 1985, the police departments came together and were in a temporary space in the village of Manlius. That was in the 5. I know that we did an accessibility audit here and found that this building is woefully out of compliance with the ADA. And we also have compliance issues with our courts naturally just because standards have changed. So we have a number of pressing issues that force us to make choices about either renovating and so I think that it's great to have a property that could possibly be the right fit. And I'm glad we're taking the steps and involving the people along the way.
And this would have to be on the ballot, correct?
So the purchase of the land, when we go to bond for it, it would be eligible for permissive referendum. And there has been some conversation about the bond that would be used to build the building. We could put that directly on the ballot to give people an opportunity to just decide.
And I believe that's our goal, is to make sure that people have some kind of say.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
on the construction.
On the construction.
Yeah, and then, I think an important part of that is something we've discussed is really making sure that we inform the public through the process as we work with engineers and architects to develop a potential layout for the building. We would want to be engaging the public well before we engage the professionals to make sure that people know what the options are. What are the must-haves for a building that fit our needs, and then what are those nice-to-haves that the community might be interested in essentially funding for community use.
And I think that Elaine makes a good point that we haven't necessarily done a lot of work to engage the public on the new town hall, and we saw that reflected in the survey, but this is the opportunity to start that. Like it's difficult to have this conversation in a silo. Like this is how you actually expand people's understanding of the town hall, including our police department, which the community is so passionate about the town of Manlius Police Department. And of course, we're very supportive of our police department. We've got our rec department, both love recreation. They might not completely understand when we say town hall. We're talking about these facets of our community that they might not associate necessarily with the building that's town hall. So.
Well, and I think maybe a misstep when we prepared that question is we didn't actually mention the police department as well.
Right.
So that's where we have a lot of work to do with that communication. I was.
It wasn't a statistically significant survey
Right.
either. We're just trying to get a sense of what folks in the community wanted for the ARPA fund, so.
With our plan to do a mailed newsletter this year. This will be a very large portion of that. So that we know every single resident is gonna receive communication about this project. And we will detail potential timelines. We will tell them, scan this QR code, sign up to get all notifications about the new building process. And the fact that we already have that plan to do that mailing is gonna really help us make sure that we reach every single resident.
Yeah, people, I mean, I think the villages also have a vested interest in what happens in this process because this building sits inside the village of Fayetteville and we want to sell it. And the village, we rent, we lease, space for the police department from the village of Manlius. So there, those are, we don't take this very lightly, that this would impact the villages and they want to be a part of the process. And they can help us get the word out about the needs that we have.
Great.
Thanks.
Anything else?
So, if we do this, I would assume eventually an appraiser would be, we would have to hire an appraiser and I would come back to the board.
And your firm would take care of it. Your firm would do that,
Do what?
hire the appraiser.
No.
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 We're
Yeah.
The supervisor to go out and find, we'll do a request for proposals for an appraiser to hire an appraiser to do the work. I put in up to $25,000, and I have no idea, and I think that's very high.
Yeah.
I can't imagine.
I can't imagine
That's
that.
what we're talking about raw land right now, and it's going to be a market analysis. We're not going to have people really going out on site looking at it. It's not engineered. So I just used the number that I thought.
Encompass any out possible.
We'll be well under.
Okay, so I just want to clarify that it would be that there'd be a competitive bidding process to get the appraisal.
Yeah, we'll put out a request.
Yeah, we have 60 days to get the appraisal.
So we'll put out the request shortly. I'll get proposals out to the board and then we'll make a decision moving forward.
So the letter that we're authorizing, and I read this, but now I'm confusing myself. This is, the letter of intent is saying that we intend to buy this property, but we're not putting a down payment on the property. We're saying we're authorizing you to say we have an intent to buy the property and then we're paying up to $25,000 for the appraisal. Great. I'd like to make a motion. Now that I make sure that I understand it, to authorize the supervisor to sign a letter of intent to purchase 6+ acres of property on North Burdick Street, commonly referred to as the Vieta property, for the potential purpose of constructing a town hall. There were some typos in there.
Second?
Yeah.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you, everybody.
So it's constricted, but I figured it.
I
will find it constricted. It also says sing instead of sign, but I figured it out. I got you.
We moved
I got
quick.
you. Yeah.
We moved quick. Okay, thank you, everybody. Good night, everybody. Have a
Good
good night.
night.
I want to thank everybody. This is something that we've been working on, or at least I've been working on since becoming supervisor.
Well, and it's been in the works for years.
Exactly. This is a real opportunity to set us on the right track forward and make sure that our facility, fits the town, meets our needs. And I'm sure the police department will be very happy to have a new facility in the future. Attention. Okay. So next up, this is the motion regarding the summer show. This is something I discussed with most of the counselors. This is basically the summer show process. It's a series of contracts that I will say often will come in on a Thursday afternoon with a due date of the following day, Friday into business. And this is something, the summer show, through the budget workshop, through the budgeting process, we've talked about what the budget for the summer show is. And the intention here is to just make it so that when the rec employees receive those contracts as they come in, assuming they are underneath, or within the budgeted amount, that the board would authorize me to sign those multiple contracts, which include rights to the show, set rental, set delivery, things like that. And so that's why I'm asking for the authority to do that, to just allow things to move forward. This doesn't remove any ability for us to talk to recreation about how how the show's picked, how we bid out which, firm or company we're renting the rights from or anything like that. The goal is just to make it so that, when we get that last minute email, I can stop by the rec department and just allow them to move forward.
Supervisor Dare. I think I hear and absolutely understand and would agree to this motion, given all that on the surface, but and I really respect your interest in trying to facilitate and just make things more efficient for everybody and have ease of use, but we have a problem. The problem is that we want the liaisonship to this department to work better. And so before voting on the motion, if there's not a high level of comfort to vote on the motion to make that process facilitate when other processes are not working the way they should. Liaisonship should be functioning, working with you, and have that flow of information, though, in my opinion. And I don't know if other counselors would agree or anything else to say.
So I have a couple things too. Because I like to review the contracts before we do sign them. And so so it's a little, so I'd like to consider this motion a little bit before we do make any changes. And then too, I do like having the departments come before the board to let you know how the planning is going and give us updates. Just to stay informed for us and public.
So Sustainable Manlius, we had a process similar to this where like anything over, I think $50 or something, we had to come back to the board for approval, and then we did amend that later on because it was administratively cumbersome, and we felt that the committee was making those decisions prudently and, with all of the information that we needed. And we did discuss this amongst ourselves, with each other, and I think I feel more comfortable now with this, because to me, it seems like if it's sticking within the budget, there's no reason not to do it, because it's administrative. Like sometimes contracts have to be signed, it's short term. We've had, Peggy's had to come before us, and it's just seems redundant I know there were some questions about negotiating better contracts and having more competitive processes, but that's gonna have to occur long before these contracts are signed. So I think that that's something that we absolutely should be doing, but I don't think voting no on this will solve that. I think it's just gonna make it more cumbersome, and it gives us things to do that supervisor can do himself pretty easily. Perhaps if there's thoughts on the contracts and signing them, at that point, by the time it's reached that point, it's done, it's ready to go. So I think that Alyssa should be working with Rec, and Rec should be working with Alyssa to make sure that those contracts are appropriate and what we want to see and competitive. But I don't think that making them come before the board is going to solve any of those things. I agree, all those things should be done, but I feel comfortable moving forward with this just to simplify that process. By the time it reaches that point, it's done anyway.
Discussion? Comments?
I'll make a motion wait, hold on, let me get this. Is there
That's right there. It's on the record.
Before you make the motion, I am in agreement with what Heather said and what Halloween said, and I see what you're saying as well, Caitlin, and I do understand the whole administrative burden part of it as well. But we're never going to get to the discussion part of it and having multiple conversations with the liaisonship aspect of it if we just continue to allow these things to happen. When I had no idea about this happening to me at all. No
Well,
conversation
this was discussed previously.
until I saw it on the internet.
it was discussed previously with the board members, and it was a conversation I had forgotten, but the supervisor reminded me of that, and it was a conversation we did all have in December, early December.
You seem to be the only one that does recall that.
I do remember having a conversation, I do, and it, so I know that it did happen, so if others don't remember it, I'm sure that I'm confident that that conversation did take place.
Would the board be comfortable with tabling this to a future meeting to have further discussion?
That would be good. I'd like to articulate, which is not totally in my head right now, but what are the expectations? Because I think reading the contracts is valuable. There's a lot in there that's kind of, you know, does not give us a lot of recourse and gives the other guy all the recourse. And I just think there should be more process in how we're approving these things. That is, in fact, as you said earlier in the process, not the signature.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll table it. Okay, next up, we have the kayak floating dock bid.
Okay, can somebody pull up the picture? By somebody, Allison.
I'm so excited about this down.
I'm glad that you're excited.
Thank you, Clara.
So just to give you a brief background, we are part of the Old Erie Canal Working Group, which is the canal, as you know, runs from DeWitt to Rome. And there's a group of people who work with the state waterfront development revitalization funding. And there's different improvements going along on the canal all the time that different communities are writing for to approve that. We wrote for the Canal System Tourism Infrastructure and Event Grant. We were funded $24,000, which was to be a 50-50 match. So the total project cost was $48,000 that we were approved for. We got a bid that was too high. We went back to the vendor and got a slightly different arrangement. If you could see, we're working with the New York State Parks Department on a location at Poolsbrook Park on the canal. And the dock location was changed to make the gangway shorter, which would then permit the price to be lower. And this also puts it more in the canal itself, which if you kayak on the canal, the water level gets lower as the summer goes forward. So this will make it more usable later in the summer than in the shallower portion where when you get to August, there's not much water there. So we believe this is and the parks people are thrilled. They think this will get a lot of activity. This is an accessible dock, so it's intended to be able to accommodate kayakers with limited mobility or other impairments. The pathway is not exactly at grade, but it's a very gradual slope down to the water there that you can see in the diagram. If you go to the next picture, you can see the dock arrangement itself. So that's how it looks. So our highway department will install the bollard at the beginning that attaches to, and then it will go in and there's space for the wheelchair to turn around on the dock and also on this platform before you get to the dock where it's sort of that dirt there. That's going to be some kind of a surface, probably stone dust, but some kind of a surface. And then the kayaks can come in from either side. So if it's windy, you can come in from the windy side so that you don't have to fight against the wind. You can go either way. So I would make a motion to authorize the purchase of a floating launch kayak dock with board stage in the amount of $36,236 as written in the October proposal. With this price, we maintain our total project cost under the budget of $48,000.
And with that price, what would be the grant funding that we would receive?
We would still receive the $24,000.
Oh, okay,
We would pay our match.
okay.
Second.
Any other conversation?
I just had a question, like in the winter, we're storing them?
There, right now, that's debatable.
Okay.
So right now,
the original.
the original plan was it would just stay in the water. Then it was thought, well, we should pull it out of the water. They will store it there at the park, so if they pull it out of the water, it's not on us to get it somewhere.
Okay.
But the way you can't really see it in the picture, but there's already a dead tree there that's sort of sheltered.
Yeah.
And that may be sufficient shelter that it's fine to leave it in. We prefer to leave it in. The other thing I did want to say before we vote is that, the New York State Parks Department is managing the seeker for this. They will be lead agency, not us. And they will be getting permits from the Army Corps of Engineers and the DEC to touch the water, because you can't touch the water without a permit. So all of that is being coordinated with the Parks Department, and our highway superintendent is managing that relationship, and will also schedule the actual installation with the highway department and their equipment in May.
We just recently met with our new commissioner for parks from the DEC. What's Dwayne's last name? Dwayne, forgive me, Dwayne, for forgetting your last name in the moment, but anyway.
I can pull it up while you're.
Thank you. We had a great conversation, and we mentioned, I don't know if we mentioned this project in our conversation, but we'll update him and
Dwayne Owens.
we did. Thank you. So yeah, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
I know a few people who kayak and are in wheelchairs, and they're very excited about this.
It's a wonderful activity for everybody. It's great.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, Councilor Vaughn, for taking the lead on that.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to learn how to kayak.
It's really not that hard. Left, right, left, right.
Just don't take that.
Yeah. And record you, and then.
No. No recording required. Okay, next up, we have surplus equipment from the police department. And so the memorandum reads in conjunction with General Order number 203, fiscal management and New York State law. The below listed equipment / property is no longer utilized or needed by this department. Therefore, Chief Crow is requesting that they be deemed surplus, and it's two Glock 9mm handguns with accessories, the fair market value of $1,000.
I'd like to make a motion to declare the two Glock 9mm handgun surplus as submitted by Chief Crow.
Oh, second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Next up, we have our code enforcement officer, Tom Poitras, to talk about or to present on operating permits and town board approvals for uses and classifications.
Supervisor Deere, members of the board, good evening.
Good evening.
So the first one I have here is the chapter 59, section 10. When we passed the local law, section 10, subsection 8 of that had identified items that were not put into the local law. So I had added A through H, which includes occupancies and uses and items that we would like to have annual operating permits issued for. If anybody, one of them is private hydrants, which is done when we do our fire safety inspection, but to help with everybody and making sure that they are done on an annual basis, we look for any private hydrant having an operating permit so that we can ensure that the testing to make sure it's operating for when emergency services need to get there, that it is working in accordance.
I have a question. What are special amusement buildings?
It would be the simplest way is like a Halloween maze where a tent gets put up, or if you put it in a vacant building and then you have some type of maze attraction.
Like a haunted house or something.
Yeah, a haunted house. If it was, I guess depending on how it was, if you put a bunch of bounce houses into a vacant structure, I would have to look under the exact definition of special amusement building. It may fall under that.
So I would like, so it's not just a tent, but it's like thing that's gonna be there for a while.
And it could be temporary or permanent,
So but I think.
like a mirror maze that would be a permanent
Could-
structure inside.
It's like indoor golf. Would be a special amusement building?
I could look up the definition. It's generally, I don't want to say yes or no on the exact definition, but I would say no, like if you were to go to Pars indoor golf and do it, that would not constitute as well.
These
Maybe,
tend to be things that are.
maybe
more
something like
hazardous
an
than-
indoor miniature golf where there's an element that you would become possibly disoriented in if you were in there, or you would get lost.
And then my other question was fire watch, what is that?
That is when you are building a building over 40 feet and the fire safety has not been implemented into it, or if a building of a residential capacity, some type of like safety fit feature is not active, you would have a qualified individual. A fire watch is when someone walks around the building, and if, say, something is not active, they would be the ones checking every so often, 30 minutes or so, to make sure that if there is an issue, they have the phone and they're calling 911.
Wow.
So when their systems go down in a building, do you have to, are you alerted to that stuff and you have to mandate that they?
And that's when we would start that we would start the process, we would say the operating permit. It hopefully would not last for that long, but we would have to, the operating permit would outline what would be required for them to operate with a fire watch. So they would be,
How do you enforce something like that to make sure that's actually being followed? Do you just
it's
hop in?
required by New York State, so the fire department would generally be the first on scene to alert me, or somebody would alert me, and then I would start that process of speaking with the property owner and telling them they need to initiate a fire watch. Here's the operating permit in which you're gonna have to. We would give them the operating permit to have the fire watch, then it's documented that a fire watch is being done. We would check records because they have to keep logs of when they're walking when they're walking the building structure. And then we would take those logs, we'd be able to document the fire watch within the operating permit.
I have the definition of special amusement building.
Perfect.
It's one that is temporary, permanent, or mobile and contains a device or system that conveys passengers or provides a walkway along, around, or over a course in any direction as a form of amusement arranged so that the egress path is not readily apparent due to visual or audio distractions.
So the maze example.
Yeah.
So it's not like you put up a tent for a venue. that you-
Yeah.
So the idea is disorienting and people might not be able to escape them.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
No, I will say. Tents and temporary special event structures require an operating permit under E,
Yeah, usually
Chapter
the,
30.
like, the company.
so it's covered under that.
So like if I have a graduation party in my backyard, I'm good.
Usually the rental
Yeah,
company
the
has that.
rental
permit.
Okay, go ahead, like, yeah, great.
It'd be more if we were having a. Like a Greek festival or one of these festivals where they put up a huge tent, there needs to be a plan for that and make sure the fire rating's there for the tent.
Sorry, we could go down lots of rabbit holes.
No, is there any other on there?
This board is like the king of rabbit holes. It's like our favorite activity.
But I think the point is, these are hazardous places.
Yes. And these are what we've identified, and some of these we don't have in the town right now, but if they come into the town, we're covered. And they're already in requiring an operating permit, so we're not having to go back and modify the local.
Thank you.
Number 9 is reserved, and that one required 3 years between for the operating permit inspection. So that one, there's nothing that we would want under that. I will work, so in regards to that, also I'll work with town attorneys for drafting that. The other one I spoke with town clerk Allison Weber in regards to, it is section J, chapter 59, section 10, explosives and fireworks. During conversations of operating permits, the fireworks has come up, and I put together operating permits applied for outdoor use between September 1st to June 30th. On the days of Sunday through Thursday will require town board approval with the exception of federal public holidays. So that if you are going to be having a firework display on a Sunday or a Tuesday, that it would require the town board's approval. As of right now, it requires just the supervisor's approval. So we would draft that in the local law if that's something that the town board would like to see.
You're gonna have those fireworks.
So my recollection of state law says that the town supervisor makes issues the permit.
I get permits infrequently for fireworks displays.
We used to do the Friday and Saturday.
So when you all first got here, you did used to do firework permits, you're remembering that correctly, and at some point, someone asked us about that, and we went back to the code and discovered that the process was in fact that the supervisor signs off on it. That is misleading as we speak about it here, because there's an application, it goes
Right.
before our.
Yeah, fire review.
Yes, and the fire departments are notified, we make sure there's insurance, we have copies of driver's license, all sorts
The
of
people who
things.
need to know, no.
And then once that application is completely approved, then it goes to John for his signatures.
And then but if they wanted to do it outside of Friday or Saturday, then it, John can't just sign it, it has to come to all of us.
Under what, code enforcement officer John Poitras is proposing.
And I think, I mean,
It was Wednesday.
Well, there was a noise issue on Wednesday with, that had come up, but did not go anywhere with, and I can't think of the name of it, but there was a Wednesday night band issue.
Yeah,
Wasn't it,
So I just think-
traditions at the links?
yeah, but so I think the issue is the weekend any different from the weekday to say,
Well, the reason why we chose those dates is those were the dates in which school is active. So that if you're gonna do it between July and,
Oh, I see,
Yeah,
September 1st to June 30th.
so
That's
that
also
is when,
fine,
if you're doing during the summer, there's no, children aren't going to school the next day.
yeah, and I think that's where we get, the general amount of complaints is when it's more of a surprise. Whereas if it's in the summer, especially on the weekends or a federal holiday, generally speaking, people are like, I get it, I might not enjoy it, but I get it. And this would give us an opportunity to really investigate what's happening, when fireworks are happening at a time when you wouldn't expect it, basically.
So just to clarify, during the summer months of July and August, at any day of the week, who approves this?
The planning and development, the fire marshal, the fire department, the police department, and supervisor here.
so it's
Okay,
not like
and then-
nobody.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the year, on days that are not Friday or Saturday, we would have to approve it
Correct.
if we were to
It
vote.
would appear on the agenda as before.
So giving people a chance to look at it, notice, and maybe. give us
I think
comments.
Tim's brain is breaking.
May I suggest an alternative?
Absolutely. I just wanted, it was brought up within my department, so I wanted to, it's not something we need to do, Tim. I just wanted to put it out there on
So
the table.
my understanding of
But my,
the penal is that it's illegal to put out fireworks anywhere in the state of New York. Period. It's not. There is a provision in section 405 of the penal law that says if you have if the supervisor of the town approves a fireworks display based on an inspection by the fire department and planning department and all those, then you are no longer illegally doing fireworks. I think that's my recollection of the law.
Right, I have a friendly amendment. I would like to suggest that we get data. You have all these permits from the beginning of time that we've been doing. Let's have, figuring out COVID was probably different. Let's have 5 years or something of, these are all the fireworks we've approved. These were the days of the week that they were. And let's just see if this is even an issue. If
okay,
it was one Wednesday wedding in the year, I don't think it's worth the effort.
I think it was, those Wednesdays were all summer,
They were all in some.
yeah, and they were every week. And people got sick of them week after week, and there are a lot of dogs and animals and natural wildlife that don't care for fireworks, so. Yeah, but I wanted, we talked about the people, I wanted to mention the other beings that don't, so it's not just school children and it's the school concern is. There are a lot of people that email us around the July 4th saying like, another year of my dog being petrified, so that's worth just mentioning, I think.
And that was my concern too. I used to live in Homewood and then sometimes we would know that and I think it's the window.
It was with perfect, and we never heard
I
about
know
it.
we never heard, but then suddenly someone's dog would get loose because they didn't know, like, how do we notify rather than things happen so they can make sure their dogs are inside or anything.
Maybe that's our recommendation back, is like the county. The county should tell us about fireworks, like a firework bulletin or something. Calendar.
So are people okay with just getting some information, and finding out how much of an issue they ask? Thank you.
And then we've got
Food trucks.
Second item is the food truck operating permit. This is what, so. This would be the steps for obtaining an operating permit to have a food truck within the town. Completed operating permit application. I don't know why the draft one came in, but it was site plan showing, including vehicle locations, tents, tables, generators, the required inspection for it. And then you would have to come here to the town and set up between 8:30 and 4 p.m. with 48 hours notice. At this time, we were not going to have a food truck operating permit fee for the inspections. We were gonna give that a 1-year period to see how that was. I will say, I don't know if I don't think the town has received any complaints from brick and mortar restaurants in regards to food trucks being there and kind of taking away business and them paying taxes. If that's something that happens, we can look into creating an operating permit fee for them. But I believe the inspection, the fire safety inspection will be fairly straightforward as they're coming to us, setting up, having everything ready for us. The inspection shouldn't take more than 15 or 20 minutes and then little paperwork after that.
And if you know, we can have another conversation about.
I have a recommendation on this. I know the villages are also looking at food truck permitting. And from the point of view of the business person with a food truck, if you could coordinate any details as much as possible with 3 village codes so that an operator parking on Burdick Street on our side would have the same rules as somebody parking on Burdick Street on their side, just for ease of business operations.
There should be no, they should have an operating permit through the village if they are there. I can't say that what the villages will have for fees, but our inspection should be exactly the same.
If you could just coordinate and make sure that it's not, that we're not saying something different.
I'm looking to coordinate with the Food Truck Association. I know they've been in contact with the county and some of the other towns that started making food truck inspections happen before the local law had to be passed for municipalities. So I know one of the director of it has been thoroughly invested in getting all of the food trucks that participate in the Food Truck Association where they need to be, so that when they have a large event, that they're not having issues with their food trucks that show up.
I know the village of Manlius has a regular food truck thing, so I would certainly start with them. They've probably put more thought into it than the other villages, but I know Fayetteville's doing something too, and probably, and Manoa has had food trucks that was part of
I
it.
think I'm at town center too. Town center.
Yeah, town
Town
center,
center
yeah,
for the market.
And the YMCA had it for a while, so there's been a few around, so I think if you could.
Yeah, just
And
make
I
sure.
would-
They're probably all working with the association too, so I just
I think
think
that's
that
a good idea.
the more we can just sort of make sure it's not confusing.
We will be reaching out to the places such as Town Center, Traditions, which has food trucks, and places that we know that are gonna frequently have food trucks, because then we could have a pre-approved site plan to show where they can be and what the constraints will be for them to operate in. And they could have on a site, they could have 5 locations where you could put a food truck and you can pick one of the 5 sites to go there, set up and be in compliance without that.
Okay, that sounds good.
I hear what what Deputy Supervisor Lunger is saying, and, I'm sorry, I needed to have a cough drop, but it's impeding my ability to talk, sorry. What I think is important is to make sure that the compliance piece and communication is there. But I also see this as an opportunity to be a little bit more business friendly with a newer industry. And so I love that you're coordinating with the Food Truck Association and that they're trying to make sure that any of the differences between municipalities are understood by the vendors, the food trucks. But I am expressing support also for going that extra distance with our municipalities that are part of our town, to make sure that someone who's doing this is like, I don't have to go 3 places. If there's a shared web page or whatever it is, something that makes it easy for someone who's starting this to be able to go in a couple of different locations and serve, Lewis Park and serve Town Center and serve, Bangers Road or whatever. Is that?
Yeah,
Thanks.
no, I mean, having that, so that we're all in, myself and the other code enforcement officers, we know what the other code officers within the town are doing. Is
Yeah.
definitely be beneficial for that.
Thank you.
And I think this is absolutely the right direction. We had talked before about the peddler permit thing doesn't work for food trucks, so this is a better approach.
Thanks for sticking with us, Tom, from like the workshop all the way on.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Allison, are you?
Oh, I did want to say, so before you tonight, I am officially submitting to you my annual report. It is not required that you do anything with it, because we have a town accountant, but I just still like to do it, so. There we go.
Thank you.
That's so helpful. And we can see the permits for the new houses and then 10 apply for, it's really interesting. And you always maintain the targets for the licenses and you service. I mean, I know you're not able to control
Yeah,
that, but you do a great job of reminding people to re-up their licenses.
that is Tina.
Thank you,
That's all
Tina. Thank you, Tina, and I know that I owe you a rabies certificate.
So next up, we have approval of the minutes for December 7th, 2022. Any questions?
I'll make a motion to approve December 7th.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. And now the 21st of December.
I'll make the motion to approve the meeting minutes from December 21st, 2022.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Okay. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Next up, approval of abstract number 1.
Okay, Mr. Supervisor, I would like to authorize 2023 abstract number 1, $306,741.26.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. I will look for a motion to enter executive session to discuss an employment matter.
Yeah, well, it's matters leading to the appointment, employment, and so on, a particular person or corporation. That's what we're going to executive session to discuss.
I will make that motion. I'll second it.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Okay. So our code specifically authorizing everything.
Bring it up.
Put in the throng some people.
Executive session's over.
This is always the most amusing. Town crier. Like Paul Revere, like we bring out the whole version. Paul's right around. Executive session is over. And yeah.
One time, it will matter. We will all no longer laugh at John.
Well, this has been.
About this, my laptop.
Mr. Supervisor, I would like to make a motion to, that for the town of Manlius to engage Valelio and Low employment attorneys to assist the town with a matter at a rate of $225 per hour.
Then I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. I look for a motion to adjourn, seeing no other business.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Good night, everybody.